Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about some ideas for a generic fantasy RPG. Now, I've already done some videos where I've talked my way through some notes I had on very specific IPs. These are IPs with, like I've always talked about, with defined settings and then a story, and then I've hinted at the mechanics I want to do. But I found a document deep, deep in my archives. The source of this document is Troika in the early 2000s. It was something I wrote up for a brainstorming session. So it's not really an IP, what I'm going to talk about. It is kind of the stage before you start talking about a particular IP. It's just ideas. And they're mainly system mechanic ideas, but they would go very well towards defining a particular kind of setting or story. So I think when I wrote this up, I thought of it as, hey, here's some cool system mechanics I have that are divorced of any kind of setting or story other than being a kind of generic fantasy game. Which means if someone else had an idea for a cool setting or a cool story and they needed some kind of mechanics, I'd be like, I got your back. So I want to talk about it. This is not in any particular order. I'm going to go in the order I wrote it down. So sometimes I'll have to say, hey, I'll get into what that is in a minute. Because it literally is a file in my archive called Ideas and Templates. So I'll dive right in. In this fantasy world, the source of magic is souls. Souls power mana, or souls give mana. Mana is what are used to power spells. Mana are what is used to power certain powerful abilities. And mana is used to power the crafting of magic items. So you can craft a regular piece of armor, a really good piece of armor, with just a skill. But if you want it to imbue with magic, you need to use mana. And we're talking about there are kinds of mana. When you first start playing the game, you get this mana whenever you kill something. And the amount of mana you get depends on how powerful the thing is that you killed. So, you kill a rat, you get a little sliver of mana. You kill some stronger animal like a wolf, and you get even more mana. And then you discover that when you kill a person, you get quite a bit of mana, which right then is going to probably inform this setting. When you actually decide to make magic items, whether it's you get a skill high enough and it's a skill unlock, or it's a perk that you buy, or it's a quest you go on, I didn't get into that. But once you basically decide to craft magic items, that is when you discover that the mana you get for killing something is flavored. And so there are different kinds of mana flavor that come from different kinds of soul. Now, for the purpose of just the power that you're using to cast a spell, most spells, or use your abilities, it's just mana. However, certain special abilities and certain special spells and all magic crafting requires a certain amount of that flavored mana. And this could be wildly different. You could have good mana from killing good things, or evil mana. You could have innocence. If you want a spell that opens up a gate and brings in some powerful creature to do your bidding, maybe it's powered by the mana from innocence. One idea I had was, if you want to really make, if you're playing a wizard character and you want to make a magic sword for a warrior, you need a lot of warrior souls to get that flavor to make that sword. In fact, just from this idea, I wrote down an idea that, hey, maybe this game could revolve, the story of the game could revolve around the player trying to tap into the ultimate source of souls, the afterlife. Maybe it's heaven, maybe it's hell, maybe it's limbo, maybe it's any of those, and you can decide which one you want to tap, but that would be the ultimate source. You could even get into some crazy ideas, like maybe there are spells that let you tap into mana from your minions. So the reason people have minions and followers or start a cult is anybody killed by one of your minions, you get a portion of that mana. And this is why, evil things always like to have all their evil minions. So that's kind of like the base idea. And then around that, I started building things like the game starts with you being a normal person. You can decide what you want to do. You keep in mind, being a pacifist in this world is going to be very difficult because you will never ever get mana. So you won't be able to power your abilities and spells. Probably being a pacifist wizard is not going to happen. Maybe that's why wizards are viewed as kind of evil. But of course, you can always go kill evil things and get mana from that. But that will, of course, then inform what kind of items you're going to craft if you're ever going to craft anything. Maybe there's an ultra form of pacifism that you can't even use magic items because, magic items were crafted with people's souls. So the generic idea of this game was you're just a person who's trying to create a village. So you can pick what buildings you build for this village, and that attracts people to your village. There's a lot of different shops you can build. I just call them all shops. Maybe it's a blacksmith, a temple, an alchemist, barracks, a wizard tower, a bank, an inn. Every one of these shops sells something, from items to followers to quests to spells. To upgrade any of these shops, you have to go off on quests. I want to talk about quests in a minute. So, for example, let's say your blacksmith wants to make you better items. He may need a special anvil, maybe a magical one. Maybe he needs ore, special ore from a particular mine, so you have to go clear it out to get that ore for him. Maybe the bank is saying, well, there's a lot of bandits in the area. You need to clear them out until we can upgrade to the next level of bank. And maybe that next level of bank is they put branches in other places, so anything you deposit in this bank is available at all the branches. But they can only do that if you clear out all the bandits. Maybe the temple needs a special altar, or they need their altar sanctified, and that requires you go on a particular quest. So each quest you get adds to, and each quest that lets you upgrade these shops adds to a repertoire of what your village provides for you. The anvil lets the blacksmith make better weapons and armor. The altar has some global effect. Maybe you get less random encounters, or maybe any magic item made in your village has a chance of being a little better than it normally would be. The wizard or alchemist sends you out on quests to get components, and then when you get them, they have more items in their shop to sell to you. So it's a feedback loop. You're doing these things. Keep in mind, none of this requires you to do anything with mana. It's just that's the underlying thing behind all this. So now let's dive into quests. I have a big thing here saying quests would never be externally imposed. The player does quests in this game because they want to do those quests, because they want things. And I broke them down into categories. First are item sets. Weapons and armor come in sets. Having more of a set gives you more abilities and bonuses. And when you get them all, you get some kind of super ability or super bonus. Now, these things drop randomly until you need the last one or maybe the last few in the set. And then you get a quest which gives you places to go look to complete it. Maybe, you need 3 items to complete it, and the quest has 5 locations. So you're not sure exactly where they are, but if you go to all 5, you'll eventually get those. And maybe you get the name of someone who owns the last item in that set. It'd be really fun. Similarly, there are collection quests that when you find something special, like you find a special scroll, or you kill a bear and it drops a perfect bear hide, or you kill a goblin and you get a goblin skull, that now kicks off a collection quest. And it says if you get N of these, you can turn them in for something, maybe money, maybe XP, maybe you get an item related to those things in some way. And again, once you've gotten most of them, you're supposed to get 10. Once you've gotten 8, maybe you get a quest that tells you where those last 2 are. Similarly, component quests, that's when random mob drops or items found naturally like ore or fruit or feathers, and or even purchasable items can be used to make things. They're part of the components that someone would need to make armor, weapons, maybe even magic items. Players can use them themselves, these components, or they can give them to one of the upgraded shops in their town to make these things for them. But again, you can get quests to get these components. Getting into some areas may be restricted, and there are quests to gain access. So these might be prove your worth. They might be, hey, you have to learn our language first, and I'll talk about that because that was another idea I threw in here. It could be you have to kill bandits at a bridge before you can get past the bridge, or you need to find a missing, kidnapped mayor before you can do anything in a new town, or maybe it's a cult and says, until you bring us the blood of 10 innocent people, you cannot enter our special cult temple. And then I mentioned language quests. I thought it would be cool if the different races or even different areas of this world spoke different languages, and the player had to travel and learn those languages. And that would be dialogues. Or I'm sorry, that would be quests to learn the language. And then once you learn the language, just that language is a prerequisite for opening more quests. And that languages can be learned by you find books. Once you get enough books on the language, maybe you gain a base level in that language. Maybe you can seek out teachers that you can pay or do quests for. You can find items that help you with languages, or maybe there's magical means of doing it. Sometimes access will be denied to an area. So see the previous, you have to do an access quest. For example, there may be elven guards that prevent you from going into the elven tree city. Or maybe you need to speak Thieves' Cant to get into the black market trading area. I just think this is a really cool way of blocking off something. The player may not ever want to do that, but if they do, they're going to have to do these quests. The whole town improvement thing I mentioned, the upgrade to certain of your shops, maybe even to make a certain base shop, you have to go do a quest. If you want certain goods or services in a town, you have to do a quest. And then finally, I was thinking about providing the player with a house or tower or castle. And just to do that, you have to do a quest so you can build the base one. And then any improvements, locks, furnishing, pets, you have to do quests to get those. So the basic idea behind all these quests is the player initiates it due to some want. A blacksmith should not say, go to the mine and kill these gnolls and bring me back 10 ingots of mithril and I will reward you. Instead, the player goes, why don't you sell any really high-end chainmail? And the blacksmith goes, well, I don't have any mithril. If you got mithril, I could do it. There's mithril at this mine, but a bunch of goblins have overrun it. I like this because it makes it a player-driven quest. If the player already has really good armor, he'll be like, eh. Otherwise, he'll go, I'm going to go to that mine. I'm going to destroy all those gnomes, and I will come back, or gnolls, and I will come back, and I will bring you the ore. I also want to put an alignment system in this whole thing, which makes it even more interesting. And I was going to do the standard 2 axes of law, chaos, and good, evil. The player starts neutral, and then their actions are what changes it. And I wanted very specific actions so the player can know ahead of time. And I broke it down into law, chaos, good, and evil. Law was, if you ever accept a quest or a bounty is to go kill some named person or a group of evil things. Usually bounties are things that will be chaos. Whenever you accept them, you get a little bit of law, and when you complete them, you get a lot of law. Similarly, chaos advances whenever you botch a quest, or whenever you kill any named or non-KOS creature that you don't have a bounty on. So if you're basically going around just killing things, that's chaos. Good is when you kill anything that is evil, or whenever you complete a quest that has a label on it of good. So you know when you get the quest, doing this will make me a little good. Similarly, evil would be killing anything that's good or less evil than you. This makes evil that slippery slope that I've talked about before, where you can, if you just kill some evil things, and those evil things are not very evil, and you're pretty evil, that just pushes you more into evil. Similarly, completing any evil quest makes you more into evil. And then the cool thing about alignment is items may be restricted by alignment or even powered by alignment. So you may get some lawful good weapons or armor that do more of their scaled, their abilities and the bonuses they provide are scaled by your own lawful goodness. Losing alignment might be losing some abilities or bonuses off items, or even being unable to wield them if it's a prerequisite. Dialogue can change based on alignment, with good and evil, law and chaos responses being available in dialogue. Notice the way it's set up is lawful and goodness are hard to maintain because it's easy to slip up. So those items should be rare and really cool. Likewise, chaos and evil are slippery slopes. There's a lot of people out there who are chaotic and evil. So there may be more of those items, but the bonuses aren't going to be as big. And once you start down that road of chaos and evil, it's really hard to turn back. If you're really, really evil, it's going to be hard to find anything more evil than you. And convincing someone to give you a quest that's marked with good, those people may not even be talking to you anymore. So getting back to being good may be very hard for you to do. It would be very important in the system to know the alignment of a monster before you kill it. Know the alignment of a quest, know alignment of the item. So I don't think hiding that information would be good. So that's something you should probably get whenever you inspect any of those things. And then the last thing I want to talk about is items in this world. I've kind of already talked about items and how they work, but I wrote down this idea that they should be tiered. So there are 4 tiers of items going from the most powerful to the least powerful. The most powerful are item sets, which I kind of already alluded to. No other group of items will ever beat a completed item set in terms of abilities or bonuses it gives you. These are the artifacts of this world. These are made either in a bygone era or by techniques that are not commonly available today. So if you want the best fire resistance in the game, you will need to find an item set that provides it. But item sets are going to be rare and hard to complete. So whole quests exist for completing item sets. Some players may want particular abilities not found in item sets, so they'll have to go to a lower tier for those, because item sets are somewhat unique. The next tier down are crafted items. These, short of those item sets, which are usually named and old, these are things the player could make, or the player could get an NPC to make for them by doing component quests. Since the player can go after the abilities they want on crafted items, it's easier to get exactly what you want. However, you usually just don't find these. You're going to have to find the components and either have the skill or the money to get them made for you. The next tier, tier 3, are reward items. These are things that people give you for finishing quests for them. These tend to be pretty good. They're not as good as crafted, and you don't get to choose what they are, but these are items that you could have made with crafting, and they're way better than the next tier, which are just drop things you find lying around. Some aren't magical, but they're finely made, so they're worth having. Some of the times you may either lack the patience to complete an item set, or you don't have the money or skill to get a crafted item, so reward items are for you. These are probably pretty common, and it's easy to find quests that have reward items of something you want. And then finally, the bottom tier are dropped items. These are things that just drop randomly when you kill people or creatures, or find in chests and dungeons. These usually aren't set items, because the item sets are placed in the world. They can have all kinds of abilities. It's random what they have. But you're never really going to find high-level ones, and you're not going to find a lot of abilities grouped on any one of these items, because those items tend to be kept by people. These are either mundane items that are kind of okay crafted, or very weak magical items that people have just lost track of. And then for all of these tiers, the better items will have some kind of minimum requirement. Level, what your player level is, being a particular class, if we go with classes. Notice I haven't talked about that, because that's just an idea here. Maybe you need a particular skill level. Maybe you need to be a particular alignment. The more powerful the item, the higher or more requirements it will have to use. Some items will be good for generalists. They have lots of low-level requirements. Others will be good for specialists. They only have a few requirements, but they're really high. Some items may have penalties too. If that's all they have, then they're going to be considered bad, cursed, whatever. These are like, you find an item, it's dropped, it's a rusted item. That's a bad item. But at the beginning of the game, these may be the only thing you have access to. Later, better items come along that either don't have any negative bonuses or have abilities. Now, occasionally you will find something with good abilities and a penalty. Like maybe there's a flaming sword, but it comes with a penalty to your cold resistance. You will have to decide whether to use those. Whew, I've been talking a long time. Anyway, that's the end of this document. I wanted to talk about this because this isn't an IP. This is the very beginning. This is the germ of an idea, of an IP. This is something that you'd write down So you'd remember it. So when you went to a brainstorming session, if anybody said, hey, I had this idea for a fantasy game, but I don't really know what I want to do for the quest mechanics, you're like, I have an idea. Or I don't know how the alignment or questing system should work. I got an idea. I have several of these tucked away, and I wanted to give you an example of design ideas that aren't really IP ideas. So I hope you like that.